Hey guys, first fan of the night.
First fan of the night.
So I have to remember to do my commercial. I've been doing a better job of remembering lately. If you want to see behind the scenes footage of stuff that Rick and Pete and I have done before and after this video, stuff, we had a whole discussion about footage from the 90s on there earlier. And you can actually find that footage on YouTube. But if you want to find it right away, you can go to patreon.com/dspiffy. There's a lot of really cool stuff that's going to go up there that I'm waiting in part until we get, we just started. We got to get a decent following up, and there's some really cool stuff.
And there's some stuff that's never going to be fully public ever.
Was that Rick or Sheep, Pete?
That, I think.
That's Sheep.
So, for those who don't know, we play a game called Rick or Sheep. And it's when we hear a sound, we have to determine if it's Rick or Sheep. And the origin of that game is the first time Rick ever came to the barn. Rick will sometimes say he's going to be there at a certain time and show up later. And so every time we heard a sound after that time, we thought it was him, but it turned out to be a sheep. And so now anytime there's a sound, whether Rick's here or not, we have to ask ourselves whether it is Rick or Sheep. And
that one was confirmed with Sheep. I mean, you could crack
I don't know, it sounded a lot like Rick to me. So anyhow.
And then don't forget about the time that they actually came in.
The sheep? Yeah, we've had this.
Sheep have made their way in here before.
And the barn cats have made their way in. That's one thing that I'm a little, we don't leave the door open anymore because of not wanting the snow and cold to get in here because of all the valuable stuff that's in here now. But we used to leave the door cracked so the cats could come in here and keep warm. The downside to that is then it might be cat pee. So, but the cats can go downstairs and cuddle up with the sheep and keep warm though. So it's not like they're going to freeze to death. But I like them coming in here. Yeah. Anyhow, because this is a legit farm. And that's what farms have. They've got cats and sheep and Ricks. So, this is the first fan of the night. You guys may remember Pete and I had a test night where we did 3 gold lines. 2 minty ones out of a department store and one really rough one out of a warehouse with an aluminum motor. This is number 2 out of the warehouse, rough with an aluminum motor. We've talked in great detail about how much we love gold lines, so that's nothing new. Anything you guys want to say about this before we start? Kohl's grocery store, Pick and Save.
Pick and Save didn't have these. They had the other ones, the ones after these.
I know, but it's just a classic Pete tagline.
He covered what I was going to say, so I don't
Yeah, it's just, you can't say Kohl's grocery store without saying Pick and Save because they're both part of metal stories. To a lesser degree, they're both part of my stories. Kohl's is just as big for me as it was for Pete. I don't know if you know that, Rick. I don't bring it up as exuberantly as Pete does. But me and him looked at a parallel of the same installation as kids.
That's his Volo Auto Museum.
It is, but it is one of mine as well. And it was the exact same installation of a store. Like it was the same design of a building, same fan install.
It was a chain.
Yeah, but not all their stores were different.
Right.
Most of them were smaller. Most didn't have fans, but their largest flagship stores with their trademark arched roof. See, we're talking about it anyways. Had gold lines, and that is one of the places that Pete and I first saw Union gold lines. It's hard for me to say exactly. There was a few places I saw them. Whether it was, I can't really say what was first because I was so young. I was probably couldn't talk yet. But my uncle's house that had the 36-inch one that was at the organ shop. The polling place that was in the golf clubhouse that had the brown one that I'm still chasing that dragon, and then McClymon's Hardware. All were like my first place seeing a Union gold line. Pete, any place you remember specifically besides Kohl's or? See, yeah, it all kinds of runs together. But Kohl's, that arched roof made it so cool.
It did.
The fans were in a really random pattern.
Yes, exactly.
Were there always balloons stuck in yours?
As long as I can remember.
Yeah, there's a lot of balloons.
They're so high up, they're not just going to go up.
Yeah, that's probably why a lot of them didn't run. They probably had power applied to balloons in them.
Yeah.
But it was as cool of an install as you can imagine. And there's footage on YouTube of similar stores, but they don't have those fans anymore. Closest one that you've seen, Rick, is you've been to the East 3 store.
I actually have seen a Union gold line in the wild, and I didn't realize until a couple of years ago that that's what it was. Mm-hmm. It's if you dig very deeply in Dan's slideshow, there is a picture of it. So in New Buffalo, Michigan,
I remember
there's
that
some kind of souvenir shop that has one that's branded Max Air, and the installation is very strange because it's drywall ceiling, and yet the canopy's mounted above it.
But what I was saying was what you've seen is the Kohl's grocery store. that had the
in
cool
terms-
install.
Oh, in terms of the install itself, yeah. Oh,
So the East Restore, where I've done videos, I used to work there. Rick has dumpster dived there. Jonas has dumpster dived there in a tuxedo with ascot.
that's very correct.
Jonas. So that was a Kohl's grocery store. It was a smaller one and did not have fans.
Right.
But all the Kohl's grocery stores had that trademarked arched roof.
Half circle.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not realize that wasn't.
That's the that's the trademark Kohl's grocery store look. If you drive around Milwaukee, there's a few other buildings remaining with that arched roof.
That was formerly.
A few of them are still grocery stores. None of them are still Kohl's grocery stores.
No, the chain went under in 03.
It did get bought under. It got bought out by Pick and Save.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that, they just
They
put
rebranded, and in fact, that's why the one that I took the fans out of was being torn down, I think, because they were tearing it down to build a Pick and Save in its place, and they wanted it to be the more modern Pick and Save, which at the time had originals. So they tore down a store with gold lines and built a store with originals, which wasn't, I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
There's a lot worse things they could have done.
But so that arched roof was the trademark Kohl's roof, but what they would normally have is they would, instead of that one's bare to the bare metal ceiling, just like this barn.
Yeah.
What they had what it had and all the Kohl's had was rick tiles. So picture that same arched ceiling but with rick tiles and
Beams
big
were painted white.
canister. You remember have you ever seen in pictures, because you're probably too young, the canister mercury vapors that Menards used to have that looked like a big paint can?
I know.
So they had those were always the Kohl's lights, but they were always 2 to a pole, like one down rod, 2 lights.
Yeah, Pete told me about those.
Yeah, they're very signature Kohl's. There was one Kohl's that didn't have the arched roof, and it still had those lights. They were the Kohl's signature lights. They were usually painted different colors, like red, yellow, green.
Oh yeah. That's
And then later they made them all monochrome. And the fans, instead of like the Restore where the fans were all down the center, the fans were just like basically in a random pattern. There would be some down the center, but basically if you're going horizontally, instead of vertically down the center, there'd be a row of 3, a row of 2, a row of 1, a row of 3, a row of 2, a row of 1, and not nearly as logical as I'm making it sound.
right. And actually, you can still find an install like that down in northern Illinois by like Skokie.
Okay, tell me more.
Not from me at all.
It was called originally when I first saw it. It was abandoned.
Okay,
Called Lincolnwood Produce.
okay. Make a note of
So
that,
it
Rick.
looked like it was that exact store, so I'm betting it was a Kohl's originally. But
Kohl's is a huge chain.
but
I mean, the
then-
Kohl's department stores still exist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's the same parent company, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Just-
Well, they split off. What happened was Senator Herb Kohl and his family. He was a beloved senator from Wisconsin. I don't think he's still alive anymore. But he was one of those guys just everybody loved. It kind of predated partisan politics. I'm not even sure. I think he was a Democrat, but I'm not even sure. It didn't matter. He was one of those guys that everybody loved. Did a lot of great things for our state. And his family owned, I think they started out with like a small dry goods store in the early 1900s or something like that, but it grew and grew and grew into both the Kohl's department stores and the Kohl's grocery stores. And eventually his family sold off the grocery stores to A&P, which you probably know as a Chicago chain.
Heard of it.
That's probably before your time too, but they were a famous
Yeah,
Chicago
I heard it
chain.
sounds familiar, I don't know.
Not to my knowledge affiliated with the famous A&P corned beef sandwich, but I actually should research that. Maybe they started out together and branched off too. And yeah, so then A&P sold out to Roundy's. Roundy's owned Pick and Save, and so at some point they rebranded and they all became Pick and Saves, and then Roundy's sold out to Kroger, and so now the Pick and Saves are owned by Kroger.
That's why you'll see Metro Market and.
Marciano's.
I thought it was Mariano's.
Mariano, yeah.
Oh,
I'm mixing it up. Marciano's is an amazing pizza place in Rockford that you gotta try.
You
But
mean
no, I'm
Maggio's?
thinking of Mariano's.
I don't know.
Illinois
Maggio's is
chain.
Italian, in Chicago.
And a lot
No,
of
not the chain in Italian. That's Maggiano's. Marciano's is a Rockford place. It's
Yeah,
only in
Mariano's
Rockford.
I hate with a passion, but
Why?
I just don't like the vibe there.
It's-
It's such a Karen store.
Okay, that's the store I'm thinking of, but a lot of them have, because ironically, when they started building stores again as Pick and Save after they got out of the original era, they turned back to gold lines, and a lot of the stores have new gold lines, including most Mariano's or Marciano's or whatever it is.
I'll have to check them out then. Yeah, 'cause there is one. There's actually one near me that used to be a Kmart. I don't know what they did.
Here's another fun story that nobody cares about. We'll edit this out in post. So one of the times I was driving to meet you at Youth Center, and I had to pee terribly. And if you try to find a bathroom in the greater Chicago area that's open to the public, you stop at like 12 gas stations and 14 subways, and nobody will let you. Do you have a bathroom? No. What if I buy something? No. Where do you go when you have to pee? silence. So I eventually found a Mariano's or Maciano's or whatever it's called. I think it had silver lines. I know I made a video there. It didn't have gold lines. But I went in to use the bathroom, but and between that and the filming, everybody was looking at me funny. So I bought a case of Monster Energy drink thinking we might need it at Youth Center. And that case has been in my car until last week when it exploded due to the cold. So.
Oh, I was going to say, Lincoln with produce, I saw it abandoned, and when I looked in, there were some lights on.
Okay.
And
thank you for remembering that, by the way. We got ways off topic.
It's vacant, not abandoned.
It wasn't abandoned now?
no, because it's now a liquor store.
But they still have the fans?
They changed them
Oh.
to something good.
Okay.
But here's what I saw in there when I first saw it abandoned and
Okay.
peeked in. I was hoping for gold lines.
You're hoping
and
for gold lines.
Opportunity to get some more.
Right. We would have gotten them one way or
But
another.
They were Contex.
Okay.
In the same install pattern you're describing.
Well, those are, I like
Not bad, but I don't
Not quite,
I don't lose
no.
sleep over them the way I do a Union Gold line.
Right. So I was like, oh, Contex, still cool, but
Not a Union Gold line.
But then when this liquor store, they were in a little store next to it.
Uh-huh.
Apparently they bought it or decided to rent it.
Got it.
They moved in.
Right.
And the one thing they did was they changed the fans
Okay.
to black gold lines.
I like that's even better. Well, I don't know if that's even better than Context. Were they stamped or cast Context, or you couldn't tell?
There's no way to tell they were that high up.
Gotcha.
There's no way to know.
Well, there's a possibility it's an improvement, and if it's not an improvement, it's at least a lateral move.
Yeah, they had black gold lines, and they also painted the ceiling black.
Oh, okay.
And there used to be like lights were like those drop-on
Big pendant lights were, yeah.
Kind of like that one pick and save with the 36-inch.
Yeah.
But then they changed them to the T5s.
Yeah.
The sheep say we should test the fan.
I think we should test the fan.
Yep.
Okay, big inrush, right? We know this about gold
Yeah.
lines. Anybody want to guess how much of an inrush?
I know it's big, that's all.
Probably like 5/10.
I'll go with 3/10.
Okay. You guys mean hundredths, right?
Hundredths.
Yes.
Okay. $1, Bob.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Things are high.
Okay, goes up to 0.9. No, it goes up to 0.93. And it's dropping. Who's going to brave the tack? Pete's actually better at the tack out here than I am, if you can believe that. Although, in my defense, it's because the last time I tried to do it, it was a Saturday. And you guys know that I try very hard to take it easy on Saturdays. Otherwise, my Sundays are impossible. And so I was like trying not to raise my arm too high over my head, trying not to just like do something that I'd end up feeling the next morning. And so I didn't give it the, I probably could do better is my point. But I'm happy to let Pete do. Okay, so we're down to 0.87. So that was bigger. Well, no, that was, 0.6. 0.06 is where we were at. So
technically, yeah, Pete, without going over.
Without going over peak. Well, I was saying $1 is what you say with the lowest one. So yeah, I thought it'd be lower than that. So yeah, Pete.
It's drawing close to what
Yeah.
they're rated for.
Yeah.
I can't see the meter. What's it drawing?
0.87.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's do watts.
Oh, I can, yeah. Power factor 1.
Yep.
And
Kicks ass as you expect.
yeah, well we've been discovering the wide range of RPMs on unions.
You and I were talking about that earlier.
Yes.
That it seems like there's a lot of margin for error in the way they made them.
Again, a lot of companies switched off union because of their lack of quality control. And in hindsight, that's what I used to think it was the different years and that like they made deliberate changes. But especially after talking to Bob Gould and some of these other guys that actually went over there and dealt with them, I think they were just
The quality wasn't.
they weren't being consistent, because we'll have some that's a 1 amp that draws less than 0.9. We'll have some that's a 0.9 that draws 1. Some
906 is what I'm getting.
okay, so a little bit over 300.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. What's the fastest we've measured on a union gold line, or do we not know?
I do not really know.
300's gotta be up there.
I feel like
300 is the expected RPM in my.
300 is the marker to shoot for. Over 300 is a gift. Under 300 is a slightly sluggish one.
Yeah.
And the new ones in the 85s. Well, 85s are probably similar.
What about 36 inch? Those.
Have we met? I don't think we've done a 36 inch. Well, we'll measure this little one here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder if it hit, because that little cast SMC I got hits 375. According to
Yeah. By the way, I have discovered some new information in terms of blender fans and why all of like you can have just as many similar variations in blender fan performance as you can in Goldline performance. So there is a new workbench video about Emerson's including blender fans. It's going to be, I haven't filmed it yet. I'm going to film it soon. So if you're curious about that, it will definitely go up on Patreon before it goes up on public. But we've all discovered new things about blender fans recently. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of new information that's going to go into this video, and not all of it is blender fan related. Okay, let's go.
Stop. I feel like these start higher than most. I'm gonna say it's gonna start at 5.
Well, I'll go with 4 and give it a little bit, but
I'll go
agree
6.
I've tested
That's
mine.
right.
Pete's sad he can't pick 5.
Oh,
I was gonna say that.
Well, Pete knows.
I said 6.
No, Pete knows these really well. Okay, I
Yeah.
said 5.
I bested Pete on one of these though. There was one that
Maybe it'll be 4. You never know.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's
Alright.
see.
It is
1.
aluminum. That's different.
It is different, but
Ooh.
other than the fact that the bottom of it is smooth and not ribbed, we have not noticed a difference yet. And the weight, in terms of the
4.
performance, in terms of the air movement. Oh, it was a little noisier on solid state than the other ones, which is normal for aluminum.
5.
Oh. Okay.
Like Budge 6.
Really?
Sure it's on.
Yeah.
It's on. It's drawing current. It's got a rough spot in the bearings, I guess. Didn't sound. I didn't hear any bearings.
9. 10.
Really?
Yes.
Hit the high switch and then start again.
11.
That seems like a fluke. Let's give it another shot. That's something I meant to tell you, Pete.
So is that one of those dead spots you were talking about, Pete? I wonder if that's
Yeah.
It could be.
Could be. I mean, also, who knows how long these have been since these ran? So it could also just be that, like, once it runs. The other thing I was going to say, Pete, and it doesn't have to be on camera, but I'll say it before I forget. If you were thinking of hanging that little brown union here,
Yeah.
I seem to remember it, the little brown 36-inch gold line, I mean, the one out of my uncle's kitchen that was upstairs at the organ shop. I seem to remember it did not do well in solid state.
Why is that?
I think it was louder than I was comfortable with, not in terms of sound, but in terms of, like, this is an indication that this is not a healthy control motor pairing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well,
so we can go ahead.
Yeah, I remember you had it on a 3-speed.
That's why I had it on a 3. Well, I had all the fans there on 3 and 4 speed, but I had the contact that was there before was on a solid state because that one did really well on solid state. It was,
Okay, I
you
didn't
know.
know you had a contact.
I gave it to you. You have it.
Oh, that little one, yes.
Yeah, that used to hang where the little gold line is until I got the little gold line.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Budged again.
6,
Still budging.
7.
You guys see it, or am I imagining it? Yeah. Okay. Well, we were all wrong on this one.
Huh.
I bet you,
A
yeah, it's
little
gonna
bit
run
of
a little
treatment
bit.
in there.
Well, I would, since if the bearings don't make any noise.
Yeah.
I mean, let's see how. Well, it did stop pretty quick, didn't it? Before I added any oil or WD-40, I would let it run like for 24 hours on high or something close to high before I added anything, because there's
You don't want to make it noisy.
Right.
It's already silent.
Yeah. Exactly, or flush out any grease that's in there that might be good but stiff, because sometimes heat alone is all you need to melt the old grease.
Maybe it's just cold, you know.
That's true. It's
also a tad chilly in here.
yeah. It was 50 degrees earlier today, but
That's winter for you.
yeah, it was. Well, today's better
Is
than
this still on 8?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is 8.
Pete does like 8 for gold lines.
That's yes.
It's a metal
That's
speed.
metal. It works
9.
well. We know it works well on a lot of Pete's favorites, so that's why we call that the metal control sometimes.
10.
Well, we need to come up with a name because A1220 needs to be one of our sponsors.
Sure. Was
And-
there a manufacturer that made those like more often
Yeah,
than
it's
others?
like-
All I could think of was Ryan Electronics, but I'm not even sure that's right.
Well, Lutron makes a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So in the last video, I just said the A1220 company, but I figure we can come up with something catchier than
11.
that.
12.
As expected, nice
Yeah.
medium low.
Well, you know,
Oh, that's what I would use.
well, I've tested a lot of these, and I know they work good with this control. These are the good values for these.
Yeah, I don't hear any bearing noise right now.
No, it's been
It's silent.
surprisingly none of these,
13?
none of the 5 gold lines in this batch have needed any bearing help, which is a little surprising, given that the 2 of them sat unused for 40 years, and the other 3,
How do you know they weren't ever used?
because the building has been vacant for 40 years.
Oh shoot! Wow.
That's why they still look brand new. The building, the store moved or went out of business or something. They vacated the building right after they hung the fans.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive. You don't see that too often.
No.
Usually it's gonna start getting.
Yeah, I don't know what store it was either. The guy said just an old department store. So I'm figuring like a Macy's or a Gimbel's or a Woolworths or a. That's because I mean it had that other fan, the ceiling fan I'm working on over there while you guys were. Yeah, that one. We're not naming it because it's going to be.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will be able to guess that.
This is 17, 18.
And again, it's not something that would like normally be on my wanted list, but when the guy offered it to me for the same price as the gold lines, which granted I paid more for those than I like to pay, but
20.
I know that they're all. I was happy to pay it for the gold lines.
As expected, nice. High. Plays nice, just like we'd expect.
Yeah.
By the way, these 3 shitty ones came from Buffalo, New York.
Oh yeah, because it was headquartered.
Well, I'm saying that's where I bought them from, is Buffalo,
right,
New York,
But
That's
Envirofan.
not far from
where Envirofan's U.S. distribution was.
Yeah,
Apple's far
before
from
being in Oshkosh.
Well, technically, keep going. And I'll explain while we're testing, so we don't take up too
Okay.
much time.
All right.
So
21.
the company was based in Canada. It was Banvil was the parent company, and their U.S.
30.
their U.S. distribution. That doesn't sound like bearing noise. It just sounds like
Oh, it might be canopy rattle.
something like that, or just something rattle, or just rev up noise. It's
5. Let's see, what did it draw? 0.87.
0.8, yeah.
So I remember the others that I've tested had no resonant frequency.
No resonant frequencies.
I maxed it out,
All right.
and I'm still at 0.81.
So this is a really solid room for them.
Oh yeah, all 4 of these have been. So the company was based in Canada, and their original U.S. distribution was in upstate New York because it's right by the Canada border. So it's very easy to distribute from U.S. to
Ontario,
Canada
I
there.
believe.
Yep. And so that's where the original distributorship was. But then Northwest was an agricultural company based in Oshkosh that started carrying their products and early on, and they must have met them in Canada because this was like around the same time that they set up this might have even been before they set up distribution in Buffalo. They started carrying their products, and they're like, well, we like these. We want to be the U.S. distributor for them. So then Northwest became the official U.S. distributor for them back as far in 76, I think. But they still came in through Buffalo.
All right, solid state variable.
Hey, Rick, why don't you go turn off that Rick surprise? Because that noise is going to bother Pete. Little Rick surprise over there. You can just hit that switch and it'll go off.
Over here?
Yeah, hit the second switch on the
Turn off the lights.
yeah.
Oh. Oh.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, the aluminum ones are not as so quiet. That's the only version that I like the British pronunciation. It's just fun. Most British words are stupid.
Yeah, this is like living room quiet.
We forgot to guess, but yeah, we knew it would. We kind of knew what it would be based on the other one.
Where the cast iron ones were almost silent.
The ones out of the old department store were dead silent. I mean, you could barely. I think we qualified them as silent. This one seems quieter than the other one we tested, Pete. Don't you think?
I can't remember off the top of my
I remember that one being solidly living room, and this one seems more on the border. But maybe I'm remembering wrong. We'll go back and check the video, and we'll edit this in post.
It's not terrible.
No, but it's just a little more than.
Oh, I wouldn't use it on that, but it's not like.
Well, if it's out here in a shot.
Right. We used it out like that out here, but not in my living room.
Right.
Then again, I'd probably have a cleaner one in my living room anyways.
Yes.
Okay, so the final remaining test would be the metal test and the Rick test. How metal are these, Pete?
Oh, let's see. Definitely Cannibal Corpse deicide metal.
I believe that's the top tier of metal.
It is. I kind of feel like this is the basis of the metal test, is it not?
It's definitely the thing to aspire for. How Rick is this?
I'd say wood grain station wagon for me. Like I said, these are very solid industrials.
They are.
It's not blender fan tier for me, but I do like these a lot.
What I wonder, Pete, is if we could find one of these in brown. I wonder if brown would make it into avocado appliance.
Probably.
Because brown, these in brown is pretty malaise.
Straddle fans.
Let me put it this way: if I found a bunch of these, I would keep one for myself and probably sell or somehow give you to the others. But
Yeah.
I would want one, but I'm not like.
Yeah.
You
now
can
what
see
I
Pete's.
have is- I have the closest thing to it is, or he does too.
Yeah.
The straddle fans. Now these particular ones, I attempted to hang 2 of those.
Well, let's close out the video so we can get the heat back on. So we have to thank our sponsors. Who are our sponsors, guys?
First of all, Fan Stick.
Fan Stick, the original sponsor of this YouTube channel.
Yes.
The subsidiary Light Stick, Taco Burrito Mexico, where you go if you want taco burrito or Mexico. The Good Manufacturing Company for when excellence is too much, and the 81220 Company, yet to be renamed.
Yeah.
So what can they do if they want to support our sponsors?
Buy Fan Stick.
Oh, I forgot to say patreon.com/dspiffy, which is where you go to buy Fan Stick. Thanks for watching.